Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo. We're here at the South Park Center. I'm delighted to join with Aaron with his movie, Demon Boy. Let's take another clip. Aaron, I'm delighted to have you here today. Welcome to the New Filmmakers Los Angeles family.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing Demon Boy to us.
Thank you for having me.
For those that haven't seen it, tell us a little bit about the film.
Demon Boy is an erotic thriller about a stalking scenario, and it starts out feeling really wrong and kind of has like a twist ending where things end up weirdly right.
I love that you said that because I did not have any idea where you were taking me, but I was loving the journey you were taking me on.
Good.
And I was like, which is really, really great. So well done. Again, I love saying the title Demon Boy. It's just like a cool title.
Yeah.
And it really was such an incredible imaginative journey that you took us on throughout the film. And we really didn't know where we're going to go, so get ready if you haven't seen it. Where did this inspiration idea come from?
So I made this film because, well, I wanted to make a short film, and I was kind of juggling between a few different ideas, and thinking about how I wanted to make something really just for the sake of making it. I didn't really think too deeply about what does the industry want, or what makes sense, or what is palatable right now. I think that's something that's really difficult for me as a filmmaker because I tend to think very strategically, and I think sometimes over strategically.
Yeah.
And so with this film, I just didn't think very deeply about it. I was like, I have this story, I wrote the script. There were pieces of it that even to me kind of felt like, does this make sense? Like there's a demon, there's these like expressionistic images, and like, they're not really connected to like the actual like storyline in like a literal sense. And I was like, I don't know if any of this makes sense, but I'm just gonna do it. And I think thematically, like the genesis of it was just coming from a really personal place of being a queer person in Los Angeles, and specifically a gay man, and really struggling with, I mean, like, I feel like LA is probably one of the worst places to try to find love and romance. And so in a way, it was kind of like a cathartic experience of expressing that, that struggle, and of feeling isolated, and how isolating LA can feel. And then obviously, a big piece of the film is it's a stalking scenario that starts with internet stalking and then kind of becomes like real, like bad stalking. And I think, just touching on the ways that obviously like the social media and the internet and the digital age have just made us, that cliche thing of like, we're all more connected and also not at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, so, you were saying this at the event last night, and I was like, I can so relate as a queer person in Los Angeles. The whole experience, it's such a unique kind of crazy experience. And then stalking, which I've had before, and it's another whole nother scenario as well, which you can have. But you made this in such a, like, it was so stylistic. Like, I love how you shot it. I love the colors. I love the whole dynamic of like this kind of world that you create. It was like almost mystical. So when you're kind of going into the context of that, like, how did you go about knowing how you wanted to sort of for it to look?
I didn't think too deeply about the style. I kind of knew what the style was, if that makes sense. Like, it was just really intrinsic and really natural and organic to the story that I was telling. The story is about a digital experience that becomes a real world experience. So I wanted it to feel kind of sleek and digital. I knew that I didn't want to shoot on film. I wasn't really going for that kind of look. And, I think it's very high contrast, and, like I mentioned earlier, there's these kind of dream sequence-esque images of like the titular character, the lead, like as a literal demon. And that for me just kind of came from a place of, I guess, kind of having these more kind of like art house instincts where it's like, I want to tell a story that's a real story. I'm not really interested in like non-narrative experimental films. So I want to tell a narrative, but I also want to tell a narrative in a way that's kind of fun and creative and maybe a little bit different. So that's kind of where, I think all those things just kind of really organically came from like my instincts and my impulses. They weren't really like overthought in terms of like the look. I think one of the things that I was kind of unsure of in the moment when shooting and conceptualizing the dream sequences, I knew because of logistical constraints, like we shot the film in 2 days, and I think we did 6 or 7 different locations because the film like moves
Yeah, it
around
does
to a
move
lot of
around,
different
yeah.
locations. And so I knew I wanted to have this dream sequence, but I was like, okay, doing practical special effects and like really the only place that we can do this in a short span of time and have it work is like a black studio, like a blank studio. And I was kind of like, I don't know, like is that gonna make sense? And then like when we were in there shooting it, I was like, you know what, it's fine. It's a dream sequence. It's just black and it's just like that's perfectly fine for what this is.
Yeah.
And there's even some shots in there where you can kind of tell we're in a studio and it doesn't really for me, it doesn't really bother me because I'm kind of like it is such a scrappy like independent film. You
Yeah,
know?
but I mean, I think it. I mean, I didn't even. I mean, I was in the dream sequence, so I think.
Great.
Yeah, so don't even
So
worry. I
worked.
think it's something you notice when you're obviously on the outside looking in. Tell me a little bit about how you brought your cast together. How was this experience for them, like taking on these roles as well, and like what was that like?
Casting was really fun. I didn't do an open casting call. I found someone who I really liked for the lead role. He's a local LA actor, Ben Church. I saw him in another film at Outfest, and I just thought he was great. And it was this film where there was very little dialogue. There was some, but very little. And I thought he was just able to communicate a lot, really without dialogue. And I knew from the get-go that my film was not going to have any spoken dialogue. There's a text sequence, a texting sequence, but there's no spoken dialogue. So I knew that I needed people who were going to be like expressive enough and kind of have like that kind of like interesting like look about them where that was going to work without them having to say anything. So I saw him in another film and I thought he'd be good for it. And you know, it was funny because I guess I mean, I don't know how often this actually happens, but you know, I saw him in a film at another film festival. I found his email. I just blind emailed him and I was like, "Do you want to be in this film?" And he took like a month to get back to me.
Oh,
and
he did?
I was like, "I gotta make this film. What's going
Yeah.
on?" It was so funny. He was like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't been checking my emails." And I'm like, "So actors? Oh, sorry, I should look at the camera.
Yeah.
Actors should check their emails."
Just checking emails, okay.
And it was great. Yeah, I mean, I was in a position where I self-financed this film, and I was in a position where I felt it was really important to pay almost everyone something. Wasn't able to pay everyone, you know, amazingly, but I do feel like it's really important to pay your actors and to pay your crew. So I sourced actors just kind of organically like that. The person who plays the love interest was a friend of a friend. And just kind of gathered the crew organically and, you know, and paid everyone at least some things. That way everyone felt like their work and time was being valued.
Yeah.
And I think the actors, I think they had a lot of fun with it, but it was interesting because I knew that they were both really, really strong actors. And after you see the film, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. They don't have a ton to work with in terms of like dialogue or characterization. The film is very editing forward. The film is it moves, and I think that both of them, being like very highly trained, very skilled actors, actually both found that very challenging because they were like, "Oh, all I'm doing is looking at a phone and texting. What do I do with my fate? What do I?" And I even asked one of them. I was like, "What's the hardest shoot you've ever been on?" I was just kind of casually like in between takes because I didn't know either of them super well before casting them. And this was the love interest who plays Angel Boy. It was very funny. He had to kind of sheepish about telling me that this was the hardest shoot he had done so far, just because it was hard. It was hard to get all the beats right without dialogue. So both the actors were really highly trained and actually found it very difficult performing a role without any spoken dialogue. But I knew from the beginning that I didn't want there to be any spoken dialogue in the film because I wanted it to be very visual and to move and to tell a story through editing and cinematography and visuals, and not necessarily have to rely on what people were saying.
And they did a great job. So I mean, they really did. I mean, they were. I mean, even though there was all dialogue, what they gave us was really incredible. Like I felt like I was going on this journey, and they did give us a lot. So they did really, really well. I mean, obviously this was really special. Again, we're so happy to have you at New Filmmakers LA, but it was really nice to have such a variety of queer stories. You know, like I mean, it's such a dynamic. I feel like thank God we've come so far from just, you know, where we probably were, say, even 10, 15 years ago, even though the world feels crazy right now. But, like, how was it being part of this completely queer day of films as well? How was that experience for you?
That was wonderful. That was really cool. I really appreciate that New Filmmakers LA highlights these different diverse communities and does that in a really specific and intentional way. And I thought it was really cool seeing the range and the breadth of films that we're talking about really serious kind of heavy stuff like religious trauma or like intimacy or whatever, and then films that were kind of just like fun and scary. Like there were some fun like queer horror films, and then there were so many really there were multiple really interesting like surreal like visionary like films. It was just really cool to be a part of that.
And so Aaron, I love Way to the Dean Boy. I know you obviously had great instincts to how that film played out, and that was really great. Where are you taking us next? What's going on?
What I'm really excited about doing next is making my next short film. I have a couple ideas for whatever short film I do next, or maybe a feature. I feel like I'm in a kind of like interesting place of feeling like one more short film could be really good to kind of get a little bit more practice. I also kind of feel like I feel ready to undertake a feature. I mean, it would be scary and it'd be a big challenge, but I feel ready for something like that. I have a feature script called Bad Blood, and it's a modern retelling of the classic werewolf myth.
Amazing.
Kind of touching on modern queer identity and politics with kind of like an interesting like anti-fascist like theme to it. So I love stories like that. I love telling relevant topical stories through the lens of like mythology and horror. So that's something I'm really excited about right now.
I'm ready for wherever you take us, and I think you're ready, Aaron. You're ready. We're ready for your feature. Honestly, I think you know, it's such a scary leap, isn't it, to go into a feature film? But listen, you're ready. Dean Boy was amazing. We're ready for your feature. I'm excited. I've got my popcorn ready. But no, really appreciate you, Aaron. Welcome to the family, and we're obviously looking forward to seeing your next project. But thank you very much for Demon Boy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.